listen, I have a question. Who put out that horrible, terrible, bad rumor that y'all broke up? Who did that?
Your sister.
Toni Braxton.
Right. I don't believe they got married. I think that's a lie. The reason why I think it's a lie because Stella not gonna do nothing without Slim being there or Slim knowing something about it.
Toni Braxton finally broke her silence, and the way she exposed those Birdman and Cash Money rumors had the whole internet spinning. For years, whispers claimed Birdman's empire was built on strange rituals and dark energy, and now people are saying that same energy is creeping right back onto him. And the wild part? It's Toni who accidentally cracked the whole thing open. Everybody always wondered how a woman like Toni ended up tied to a man with Birdman's reputation. Their vibe never matched. She gave elegance, he gave intensity, and something about that mix always felt off. Behind the jewelry flexing and private jet stories, there was a heavy type of power sitting in the background, the kind that doesn't feel romantic, it feels dangerous. Toni didn't walk away because the spark faded. She walked away because she saw too much. Their secret marriage wasn't just gossip, it was real enough that paperwork was moving around before the internet even caught up. And then, boom, barely 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Toni jumped online calling it all cap, wiping her socials clean like nothing ever happened. And that wasn't panic. That was survival. And let's be real, those Cash Money rumors have been floating around for years. Stories about weird meetings, strange choices, and artists feeling uncomfortable behind closed doors. Even artists like Juvenile tried hinting something wasn't right and people ignored it. Toni saw that side of Birdman up close and it shook her in a different way. She survived lupus battles, heart surgeries, and moments that almost took her out, so she knows real danger when she sees it. This wasn't just relationship drama. This felt like she stepped into a world she didn't want any part of. Toni shifted her focus back to performing and keeping herself healthy, while Birdman's whole world started looking faded and cold. Cameras caught him knocked out during a show, looking rough in a way that had the internet buzzing like he'd done something that drained him heavy. People online even started calling him the Black Joe Biden, and that nickname spread like wildfire. Once that Hot Boys reunion tour kicked off, the clips were everywhere. Birdman standing under the bright lights with his eyes half closed, drifting off in the middle of talking like he couldn't keep himself together. You could hear the crowd whispering in the background, trying to figure out what they were watching. Some folks said it looked like seizures, others swore it seemed like a relapse of something he'd been fighting before, and the whole internet grabbed those videos and ran with them. The clips went so viral, it felt like a repeat of every time Birdman ever looked worn down, like his energy was finally hitting the wall. But the people around him didn't let that noise grow. BG jumped on camera quick, laughing and saying there was nothing wrong at all, claiming Birdman wasn't high. He was just struggling to read the teleprompter. He brushed the whole thing off like it was a joke and kept it pushing like it wasn't a big deal. That's the same story his circle keeps repeating. No health scare, no downfall, just tired eyes and bad camera angles. And maybe that's the truth. Or maybe something darker is catching up to him.
Weird to me when I got the Cash Money, it was the weirdest thing. I knew they had all these artists on the label.
Right.
So I get to the label and then all of a sudden, they let all the artists go, all the other artists go.
It's hard to unsee Birdman nodding under the spotlight while the music keeps blasting behind him. So let's just keep it real. Toni didn't walk away from a relationship. She broke out of a whole system that felt like it was rotting from the inside out. Birdman's name been wrapped up with the word ritual for years. And even though people joke about candles and pentagrams, that's not the kind of ritual this empire was built on. The real power inside Cash Money came from loyalty moves, quiet rules, and control that ran deeper than any contract. From the outside, Cash Money looked like a flashy label, but behind the scenes, it moved like some private club where everybody had to follow the code. Every new artist had to show they were loyal before they even got that logo on their chain. And once you start thinking back on the stuff we all saw, the kiss on the lips, the daddy nickname, the matching tattoos, none of it feels random anymore. Those weren't jokes, they were pledges. And once you stepped in, you didn't just work for the label, you followed the rules every single day. Birdman turned routine into performance, lining up luxury cars like an army, counting stacks on camera, tossing chains around like they were badges of honor. But anybody paying attention knew those gifts came with a message. This came from me, so don't forget your place. It was loyalty theater, and everyone played a part whether they liked it or not. And keeping quiet was one of the biggest rules. People who pushed back, like UNLV or Kilo G, just slipped out of conversations like their names got erased on purpose. Some folks even claim Kilo G was taken out because he spoke up, and that rumor never fully died. It wasn't until Wayne pushed back that the cracks finally showed in that whole family performance Cash Money used to sell. The magic look wasn't magic anymore. It was clearly control dressed up as loyalty, and the internet caught on fast. And people hype up Cash Money rituals like it's some secret occult movie, but the truth behind that empire is way colder than candles and symbols. Birdman had his own style of keeping everybody locked in. No freedom, no independence, no identity unless he approved it. He repeated the same control moves so many times that folks started believing it was loyalty, even when it was clearly something else. That's exactly the world Toni stepped into, and she caught on fast. She noticed how rooms went silent the second Birdman walked in, like everybody was waiting for his next move. For her, it didn't feel romantic. It felt like a warning wrapped in diamonds and promises. The vibe around him was, worship first, speak later. And Toni was never built for that mess. She fought too hard for her peace and her mind to let anybody claim control, so she broke the routine the only way you really can. She walked away without looking back. And once she stepped out, Birdman's whole aura started falling apart. Their quick secret marriage wasn't just a plot twist, it was the opening chapter of his public downfall. Even though Toni and Birdman went public back in 2016, they kept the real ceremony quiet until last year, when they tied the knot behind the scenes. But the honeymoon didn't even last long enough for people to get the full story. Just 2 days after they said their vows, Toni filed for divorce and called the marriage an irretrievably broken union. She pulled the petition back in January 2025. But when both of them wiped each other off social media by mid-2025, the message was loud. This wasn't a pause, it was a real break. Then Birdman jumped online and started calling Toni out, accusing her of cashing in like she owed him something. Birdman went online throwing heavy accusations, labeling Toni a gold digger and claiming she pawned her engagement ring while pushing for that huge $160 million payout. The second those claims hit gossip blogs and reaction live streams, the internet lit up like someone dropped a match on gasoline. People instantly picked sides, and the loyalty split felt like a whole culture war happening in real time. Birdman's image took a serious hit in R&B and pop spaces where folks started painting him as controlling and strategic in all the wrong ways. But in the ENT, trap, and southern rap circles, that same energy made some people see him as the classic boss figure who doesn't fold for anyone. The man stayed standing in the middle of the mess, and that only boosted his reputation in certain pockets of hip-hop. Money-wise, he didn't take the hit people expected since the divorce paperwork got dismissed fast.
Talk about the guy that don't pay the producers to the last minute. Oh, let me stop. I love Birdman.
Toni had massive sympathy at first, but once the $160 million rumor and the disappearing $5 million ring hit the timeline, her past bankruptcies popped back into the conversation. Brands slowed down on some of the sponsorship deals, even though fans still rocked with her. But the drama gave her something too. Toni's old tracks slid right back into the streaming charts, and her documentary work about women and financial independence started gaining new traction again. People love a comeback story, and her name was suddenly everywhere. Cash Money Records didn't walk away untouched either. The feud exposed old fractures inside the label, showing how shaky Birdman's standing was with legacy artists and mid-tier acts, especially producers tied to Lil Wayne's Young Money circle. Some artists froze collabs with anyone under Birdman's wing once the feud spilled online. But Birdman flipped the chaos, turning all that tabloid steam into promo for Rich Gang releases, converting gossip clicks straight into streams. When everything finally calmed down, Birdman still controlled Cash Money, but his cultural goodwill was gone. Toni walked away with public empathy and renewed attention, even if some skeptics kept questioning her motives. The old Cash Money alliance was officially done, and once that bridge burned, the money talk hit even louder. The financial rituals behind Cash Money Records were just as famous as the music, maybe even more. Jadakiss joked about it during his show for a reason, because everybody knows the business over there has always had a strange edge to it. Cash Money really did shape Southern hip-hop and turned out a whole legacy of hits, but behind all the flexing, cars, designer fits, mansion photos, the business side was built like a machine designed to keep artists locked in debt while Birdman stayed in control. For decades, that was the blueprint, and nobody could deny it anymore. Multiple artists came forward saying their advances were either never fully delivered or structured like traps, recoupable debts with zero transparency. Even T's $10 million lawsuit showed how deep it went. His teenage contract had one lawyer representing both him and the label, which meant the whole thing leaned toward cash money from the jump. That wasn't a negotiation. That was a setup wearing a smile. Lil Wayne's 2017 battle with the label went even deeper than that. His lawsuit accused Cash Money and Universal of working together behind his back, messing with his streaming numbers and cutting into his publishing profits.
I never allowed none of the labels to own nothing. I own everything.
Universal.
No, Universal never owned nothing.
They played with his money until he had no choice but to settle for less than what he actually earned. That fight shook the whole industry because if Wayne could get squeezed, anyone could. And just like Suge Knight built his own reputation on the West Coast, Birdman built a similar pattern on the East. He'd toss flashy cash, cars, or chains as symbolic payments. Gifts that looked generous, but came with strings attached so tight they might as well have been contracts. That system kept every artist tied to Cash Money long after the headlines stopped buzzing. Even the contracts were part of the ritual, because the paperwork wasn't just business, it was control. Cash Money's 1998 deal with Universal set the tone for everything that came after, locking in an 80-20 profit split in favor of the label, a setup Birdman used like a blueprint for every artist under him. Masters were almost never owned by the performers, and getting a royalty statement felt like chasing a ghost. Early negotiators like Wendy Day never saw the money they were owed, and that fed into Birdman's infamous line, "Sue me when I have to pay you, you'll get paid." That quote became legendary in industry circles, and not in a good way. Later on, Universal stepped in again, covering Cash Money's debts in exchange for more distribution control. That move turned unpaid artist profits into corporate leverage, leaving the actual performers with nothing but confusion. That's how insiders came up with the term ghost royalties. Money that should have hit the artist's pockets, but instead floated up the chain to higher tiers where nobody could question it. Inside that world, loyalty determined your lifestyle. If you stayed in line, you got Lambos, jewelry, front row treatment, and access to the glam everyone saw online. It was a reward system dressed up as generosity, and people bought into it because it looked loud and shiny. But if you pushed back, late checks, shelved albums, frozen release dates, or quiet blacklisting came out of nowhere. Punishment didn't have to be loud to sting, and Cash Money perfected the silent hit. Meanwhile, the public-facing side, the helicopters, mansion photo shoots, Stunna Island vacations kept the myth alive like everything was perfect. But by 2025, insiders weren't fooled anymore. People started calling Cash Money a straight-up medieval label model, flashy on the outside, but built on old-school control rules that never changed. Birdman and Slim ran everything like a dynasty, and younger CNES like Jacquez showed almost lifetime loyalty even though they barely had any real power. These weren't mystical rituals. These were habits built over decades, habits that turned money into a weapon and kept control locked at the top. Behind all the diamonds and flash, the system was always designed to serve the bosses, never the artists. That's when some of the biggest names started making quiet moves behind Birdman's back, silent enough to deny, loud enough for anyone paying attention. By 2025, tension inside the Cash Money camp was boiling so hot you could feel it through the screen. Some artists flexed, some kept their mouths closed, but every single one of them had an agenda. Lil Wayne, who'd been carrying resentment for years, finally showed he wasn't holding back anymore. During the Hot Boys reunion tour, Wayne and the crew walked off stage mid-speech while Birdman was in the middle of hyping the crowd. That clip went viral instantly because people knew it wasn't an accident. Just weeks earlier, Wayne had straight up cut Birdman off mid-introduction at Lil Louisiana Fest 2025, not even letting him finish a dedication to Birdman's mother, Ms. Gladys. Fans and insiders caught the message right away. The forgiveness from their 2018 settlement was officially expired. Those old wounds, old checks, and old label rules were back on the table, and Wayne was reclaiming his lane with no hesitation. Juvenile handled it differently, keeping it cool but letting his frustration show in smart ways. During the Cash Money Millionaire's 30th anniversary tour, he called out Birdman's booking team for underpaying, sometimes even straight up sidelining Hot Boy Turk after their money issues. Juvenile admitted the whole thing put him in a weird spot, stuck between staying loyal to the Cash Money legacy and doing right by his people. By then, anyone watching closely knew the vibe inside the camp wasn't the same anymore. The loyalty wasn't pure, the respect wasn't automatic, and every move from the artists felt like a warning shot aimed straight at Birdman's throne. By the summer, Juvenile started switching his whole energy and pouring it into new projects instead of feeding the drama. And the shift was loud even without him saying a word. His loyalty was still there, but he wasn't walking around blind anymore. He was moving with awareness, watching every play around him like someone who finally saw the cracks. And then there was Drake. We already know K-Dot called him a snake, but let's be honest. Drake is always 3 steps ahead of everybody. He wasn't firing public shots at Birdman, but behind the scenes, he was moving like a quiet storm. His 2025 lawsuit against Universal, Birdman's main distribution pipeline, wasn't personal, it was pure chess. Anybody paying attention could see Drake was outgrowing the cash money orbit fast. He was pushing for independence while still keeping relationships alive when it benefited him. A strategic mix of distance and connection that only Drake can pull off. Nicki Minaj kept her approach different, silent, sharp, and strategic. Birdman bragged in interviews that Cash Money had made over $2 billion off Lil Wayne, Drake, and Nicki, claiming he paid them handsomely. But Nicki never confirmed a thing and never denied it either. Her recent releases came through her own imprint setups, not Birdman's structure, which told the real story without a single word. She kept the respect but dodged all the heat. Smart move. By the end of 2025, the truth was undeniable. Birdman's big 3 weren't really tied to him anymore. Wayne was walking off stage during Birdman's speeches. Juvenile was practicing careful diplomacy while still showing disappointment. Drake was running legal power plays that reshaped his entire catalog control, and Nicki was building her own lane quietly but firmly. Together, their moves painted a full picture. Birdman still had the name, but the artists who made Cash Money unstoppable had already stepped into their own worlds. Loyalty finally hit its limit, and the artists who built that empire started grabbing control of their own stories like it was long overdue. Behind the cameras, whispers were moving fast. Lawsuits, quiet exits, new alliances forming in the shadows. Anyone watching could feel it. The next move had the power to flip Cash Money's whole world upside down. By 2025, Cash Money Studios and tour stops had turned into ground zero for chaos, drama, and explosive energy. The tension that used to stay hidden behind expensive doors had spilled everywhere. Social media, leaked clips, backstage videos, you name it. Fans couldn't get enough of it because hip-hop lives off this kind of pressure, and Cash Money delivered every single time. Inside the studio, control battles ran the show. Birdman kept a tight grip on timelines, features, rollouts, and even which tracks were allowed to see daylight. If an artist wasn't aligned, full albums could get shelved instantly. No notice, no explanation. Lil Wayne and Birdman had heated on-mic blow-ups during group sessions, and leaked audio showed arguments over everything. Song selection, royalties, creative direction. It was messy in a way only industry insiders understood. But Wayne refused to fold or let history repeat itself. His voice was louder than ever. Meanwhile, Drake and Nicki Minaj chose a smarter route, taking the high road, or at least a distant one. They recorded verses separately, kept their sessions private, and stayed away from the studio chaos that everyone else was drowning in. That silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Together, these moves exposed a truth nobody could ignore. Cash Money wasn't running like a family anymore, it was running like a pressure cooker ready to pop at any second. Instead of stepping into any Birdman-controlled studio sessions, Drake and Nicki kept their distance, dodging the chaos while still dropping music like nothing could slow them down. It was a clean move. Protect the work, avoid the drama, and stay far from anything that might blow up publicly. But the tour side of Cash Money wasn't any calmer. The 2025 Cash Money Millionaires' 30th anniversary tour turned into one long roller coaster. Canceled shows, last-minute reshuffles, surprise lineup changes, and performances that fell apart right before fans walked in. At least one major concert got scrapped at the final minute due to scheduling conflicts, sparking rumors of internal feuds, broken communication, and collapsing logistics. Fans instantly tied it back to Birdman's heavy-handed style, how loyalty in his world always came with strings attached. And once they hit the stage, that tension was written all over their faces. During the Hot Boys segment, Lil Wayne cut Birdman off mid-speech in front of thousands, refusing to let him finish. Pure disrespect delivered live and loud. It was a public statement. That old brotherhood was done. Missed arrivals, sudden lineup swaps, and surprise walk-offs kept every crowd on edge. Shows turned into unpredictable spectacles where people weren't sure who would pop out, who would vanish, or who might blow up on the mic. Every move became a clue to the deeper drama brewing behind the scenes, and backstage, the fallout was loud enough to reach the industry. Sponsors started pulling back because they didn't want their money tied to Cash Money's chaos. Insiders said brands were hesitant to back any Cash Money event. The risk of a public meltdown was too high and too expensive. But hardcore fans, they loved every second of it. They dissected every look on stage, every IG caption, every backstage clip, hunting for hidden messages and trying to piece together the truth. The rumor mill stayed running full speed because Cash Money had turned into more than a label. It was a spectacle, a high-stakes game built on loyalty, power, ego, and entertainment. The studios, the tours, the social media posts, it was all part of the same wild empire, and nobody wanted to miss a second of the mess because every day felt like a new chapter ready to explode. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment, and I'll see you on the next one.